Hello, this is Finding Peace in a World of Warcraft, Episode 2, titled Home is Where Your Hearthstone is Set to. Let's get started. For this episode, I wanted to discuss a recent issue I was facing, which is trying to find a video game to call home, or specifically, which expansion of World of Warcraft to call home. I made this podcast specifically for World of Warcraft because I knew that this game would be a part of my life forever. I knew that the way I think and how my creativity comes about comes from the foundation of World of Warcraft. I always wanted to pick an expansion to make my settlement to which I can call home. I was deciding between two expansions actually. I was deciding between Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. What I like about Burning Crusade, for just a few thoughts, is the colorful raid tier sets that you see with each class. I felt like some of the raid tier sets that you get in Burning Crusade look and feel like the class that they belong to. What I also like about Burning Crusade is the pace of the game. It's slow, it's methodical. You have to think out what spells you're going to use to fight what's in front of you. I did enjoy the pace that Burning Crusade and even classic or vanilla World of Warcraft had to offer. The few things that I enjoyed about Wrath of Lich King, just for a few high level discussions, is the pace of it as well. I liked that it was faster than Burning Crusade. I liked that you didn't have to slow down on each encounter that you had. So it was something to contrast to. I also liked how things were simpler. Sometimes I do like thinking in complex ways, but other times I liked how Wrath of the Lich King just made things a lot easier to understand, so you didn't have to put much thought into what you were doing. And this is just for the beginning parts of the game, of course. One example is they changed healing and spell damage to just be spell power. When I was trying to decide which expansion to make my home, I felt torn because I had things I liked about Burning Crusade. I had things I liked about Wrath of the Lich King. I even have things I enjoy about retail WoW. But I still felt the need to pick one as a home. So what is the importance of a home? To me, the importance of a home is being able to feel grounded and being able to stabilize. What I mean by that is I tend to drift off in my thoughts and where my focus goes. And I sometimes get lost in those parts of my life. And the way I like to bounce back into, let's say, into reality is by having something that grounds me. It's kind of like, let's say you're in a turmoil state and you're lost in the weeds and you're not really sure how to get out of it. More specifically, it could be about work. You could be struggling with a task that you have to do, and you're not sure how to accomplish the task that's in front of you. Sometimes you would go to someone that you would see as a mentor. You would seek out someone, and you would find understanding from that person, and you would say, "Hey, I feel lost in what I'm doing. Could you give me some guidance?" And I felt like World of Warcraft was able to give me that grounding. I was able to play the game and see that this is what I currently understand. This game makes sense to me. This game is static. It doesn't change constantly like the world does outside of me. I can start here and then tackle what is outside of this game. I felt like that was the importance of having even a physical home, is you can go around and travel the world. You can go grocery shopping. You can buy souvenirs. But if you don't have really a place to put those things, I feel like you're just carrying around a lot of baggage. And sometimes it can get exhausting to constantly travel around. And eventually you'll feel homesick and you want to come back home and be at a place of peace, a place of rest, and be able to kind of regenerate, rejuvenate yourself and stabilize yourself so that you can go about and do more traveling in the future. I feel like the reason why I want to have a certain expansion be my home is because I want it to be a base formula of which I can build variety off of. I want to be able to say, I like this current expansion, but I'm feeling something that's more faster pace. And then I can find another video game that can give me a faster paced combat system. Or I could play the game and then I could say, I want to be able to dive into my artistic side of me and see a lot more artsy or colorful things. Let me dive into another video game or a book or even a movie that is more leaning towards that side of me. But I can always work off of the foundation of World of Warcraft. And I knew that I couldn't make both of these expansions my home. I felt like if I were to do that, it would be too much time invested. I feel like it is good to have something that can pull you left and right. I understand that feeling of letting things pull you to give you energy and momentum. But I feel like 2 expansions of World of Warcraft would be too much into the virtual world for me. And I want that pulling effect of the left and right, as I mentioned, to be the outside world and the virtual world. I want to be able to do things outside of World of Warcraft, but I also want to relate those things to World of Warcraft as well. I don't want my only experience of life to be through World of Warcraft. So I know for a fact that I would like to choose just one expansion. I was thinking about different alternative solutions to this situation because I felt like if I was torn between these 2 expansions, maybe there is a perfect MMORPG out there for me that could satisfy everything that I was seeking from Burning Crusade, from Wrath of Lich King, and even from other expansions as well. So I tried these different games. I tried different MMORPGs. 2 of them that I played the most were Guild Wars 2 and Final Fantasy 14. And I didn't even play them that much. I felt like what was really cool about Guild Wars 2 was it had a more engaging storyline. You got to see your character side by side in dialogue with other characters in the game. In World of Warcraft, you're more of a spectator, someone that's on the sidelines, and you get to see these other characters be in the cutscenes, be in the action. And you were there to partake in it. Whereas in Guild Wars 2 and even Final Fantasy 14, you were a part of the story. You were the main character in the story. And you got to do epic things because of that. I liked in Guild Wars 2 how you can just instantly play with your friends. You can dive into any area you wanted to, and your friends can just play with you because everything just synced up to their level. You could also just jump around to different zones so that you didn't have to just stay in the current zone that you're in. You can just go play with your other friends that are in different zones and just have fun there. I felt like what was really cool about Guild Wars 2 was their understanding of letting people not feel pressured to just keep grinding. It felt like you could just do the task that was in front of you, and that was a good enough story. And it wasn't just about fighting people either. There was different ways to partake in different events that were going around you. You can help people, you can gather things, you can choose to fight as well, but those weren't the only ways to progress in a certain event that was happening in a zone. In Final Fantasy XIV, what I really was drawn to in this was the ability to have one character play all the classes and have all the professions. What I really liked doing in World of Warcraft was having all these different classes work cohesively together. I know not many people play this way, but I tend to like leveling all my characters together, having all of them have different professions so that I can have them work off of each other. I felt like it's not the game to do that, but I feel like that's how I wanted to play World of Warcraft. And I saw that Final Fantasy XIV, you could just do that one character. And I remember the majority of my time was spent trying to even out all the class levels as I was progressing through the main story. I felt like what was cool about Final Fantasy XIV was I didn't feel rushed either. I felt like I could just play the game and just drop it. I felt like with World of Warcraft, especially retail, and sometimes with the other expansions as well, I felt like I needed to get to the end. I needed to rush to get to the end zone so that I can do what's the most fun, what everyone else is doing. But I didn't feel like that with Final Fantasy XIV. I felt like I could just do the tasks in front of me, and that was good enough. What I realized, though, is that these games were not going to be at home base. And the main reason why is because it just didn't feel like home. It's as simple as that. I could make all these features up in my head and say Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, any other MMORPG is better than World of Warcraft because of X, Y, and Z. And I can convince myself in my head. But ultimately, it's down to just the feeling that you get when you play these games. And the feeling that I get for World of Warcraft is just much different. What I learned from this journey, though, of looking for the perfect MMORPG is that my search to keep, or my desire to keep searching, gave me anxiety because I felt like there was this unsatisfied need inside of me that I needed to resolve. I felt like I spent months just trying to look for another game, and I stayed away from World of Warcraft because I kept convincing myself that the perfect game is out there, and I'm not gonna stop until I find it, and I never found it. But once I allowed myself to just play World of Warcraft, I felt at ease again because I didn't have that anxiety from wanting to search for something. I felt like what I really understood as well is there isn't a perfect MMORPG. The reason why that is because what we want is never static. It's always changing. It's changing based off of a variety of things in our lives. It could be our environment. It could be what you just, let's say, consumed or used. It could be influenced by what you were just watching. It could be influenced by what your body's craving. There's many things that are going on that we tend to not realize that influence our decision or our wants or our desires to do something. I know that World of Warcraft is not going to be the only game that I play for the rest of my life. I'm actually excited about Cyberpunk 2077. That's coming in November of 2020. But I felt like World of Warcraft will always be a part of my life, as I mentioned before. It would always be a game I can always just go back to and gain that feeling of home. As I was going through this adventure of finding a place to call home, finding a video game to call home, I realized that I was kind of doing the same thing in real life as well. I just recently moved to Arizona, and my original home is in Texas. I moved to Arizona to find a new career path, a new life. For a little bit of a backstory, I graduated with a degree in psychology back in summer of 2018. And today is August 2020 for reference. So about 2 years ago, I was graduating from college with a degree in psychology, a bachelor's degree. And I knew that in order to make a substantial income with psychology, I needed to pursue either a master's or a PhD. I didn't want to go that path because I was pretty much done with school at that point. So I decided I wanted to dive into a new career path. I knew that computer science was something I always gravitated towards, and most of my friends were in the computer science industry. So I decided, hey, why don't I try something with computer science? And I talked to my friends and asked what would be a good path for me to follow. They told me the easiest, most viable path is web development. And I decided as I was graduating from college to pursue web development. And I did it through a coding boot camp called Dev Mountain, DEV Mountain. I ended up going through my education route with Dev Mountain, and they had a campus in Dallas. But the problem was Dallas, well, one thing about Dev Mountain is they provide free housing. So if you attend their class, take their course, then you can live in the apartments that they provide you with. But the problem was for me, if I wanted to go to the campus in Dallas, I wouldn't be able to do the free housing because I lived so close by. So I took that as an opportunity to go to Arizona. And I had this crazy adventure, which I'll talk about in another life, which is just another episode. And through that adventure, I felt like I had a blast. I had a great time. I felt like I had a second college experience going to Arizona, starting off fresh, trying to make it in the world through web development. And I made it. I was able to get a job in web development in Arizona. I felt like what was really cool about that was I took a chance, I took a risk, and it pulled through. Some of it was luck. Most of it was working hard and getting help from people that were smarter than me in this industry. I felt like Arizona had given me such a good start, whereas in Texas, I had so much history with it. With Texas, I have a lot of friends that I I know for a long time. I've known for a long time. I made a lot of huge mistakes in Texas. I made very successful endeavors as well, though, in Texas. There's there's many times where I moved away from Texas. Arizona is not the first time I moved out. I lived in California for some time. I lived in South Korea for a year. I felt like I always wanted to move away from Texas because it just gave me the opportunity to see life in a new perspective. Now I'm at a point where I can decide where to live. I have a very promising career path, which I'm actually deciding to change to data science at the moment. But let's say I stick with web development. I feel like I still have a very promising career path ahead of me. I can go live wherever I want to, for the most part. I can decide, since I have the freedom to decide, I feel kind of torn. I feel like I want to move to California sometimes because I had some great times when I moved there during my middle school years. I feel like I ought to just stay in Texas because that's where I have my most history. That's where I can reform myself and accept the everything about myself. I can accept the failures and the faults that I had. I can accept the success I had. I can be with my friends and see them. If I live in Arizona and build a home there, I feel like it's more intimate. I feel like Phoenix is a place that I can get to know more intimately than Dallas. Dallas is gigantic. It's massive. Phoenix, on the other hand, I feel like I can get to downtown Phoenix in relatively short period of time. I would say like 20 to 30 minutes. I remember when I was living in Phoenix for the first time when I moved for the coding boot camp, I was walking around downtown Phoenix with all my friends, and we really got to just know downtown Phoenix. I felt like I'd never got that opportunity with Dallas. I felt like with Dallas, I just drove to places that either my friends or my mom really knew about. Not really, I didn't really take the time to explore my own. I felt like it was just so big that I didn't really, I felt like I just didn't really want to do that. But with Phoenix, I feel like I had specific needs that I wanted in terms of, let's say, for food. I was looking for a certain meat market, certain fish market, and I would be able to find a good one that I really enjoyed and I can see on a weekly basis. And I can get to know those people. And I feel like it's cool because when I'm driving around, I can sometimes meet those people on the streets. Whereas in Dallas, it's more of you just meet people by meeting them through other friends or other connections or something. The point I was making with this is I'm still torn between deciding where to build a home, where to build a settlement. And currently what I'm doing is I'm just diving between places here and there. Right now I'm currently working in Arizona, but I'm living in Texas right now because of the whole coronavirus ordeal. Because of my job, I'm able to work remotely and I'm able to move wherever I want to. So I decided to move back home with my mother for the rest of the year, essentially. And then when things die down with Corona and things stabilize in Arizona, I'll move back to Arizona so I can go work where I need to work. But for the time being, I'm in Texas. And I feel like sometimes life is just going to be that way. There is not going to be place I'm going to stay permanently. There's just going to be times where I move back here to Texas. I might move back to Arizona. I might move to California. It's just what happens in my life. It just depends on the situation in front of me. But I still feel like I do want to make something a reference point. I do want to make something kind of like a starting ground for me to work off of. So with all this being said, I feel like what I've learned is I can make my home wherever I set my hearthstone to. And what I mean by that is in World of Warcraft, the inn that is basically your home is what you set your hearthstone to. So let's say, for example, you want to make Orgrimmar or Stormwind your home. All you have to do is talk to the innkeeper and set your hearthstone there, and then you can go travel about. And then once you want to go back to those main cities, you hearthstone and go back there. But you can also set your hearthstone somewhere else as well. If you want to quest in a certain area like Desolace, then you can set, I don't think you can set your hearthstone there. So yeah, you can. I'm not sure, it's been a while. But I feel like if you go to an area where you want to quest and you want to set your hearthstone there, you can do that for a bit too. And I feel like for life, that's what I'm going to end up doing, is I can just set my hearthstone to places that are convenient for me to do. So for now, it could be XYZ, and that's okay, because in the future, it could change, and it doesn't have to be static forever. What I come to terms with is understanding that life is dynamic, is never going to be the same forever. And there's going to be a time where I can have this plan and saying, I would like to live in Arizona for a good 10 years. And then something happens where I have to move back to Texas, to California, or move out of the US. And that's okay. I'm learning to be okay with uncertainty. I'm learning to be comfortable with not knowing what the future is going to hold. What I can do, though, is I can just allow myself to have a general plan, a general direction. And I can say, I would like to have Arizona be the place I would like to build a home. And then I can travel to Texas, I can travel to California, because those are east and west of Arizona when it's convenient for me. And I can come visit family from time to time. But I would like to make Arizona home. And I can just make that my general plan, and if something changes in the future where I need to adapt and pivot, I can do so. But I don't have to make it this hard commitment. I'm saying this is going to be the sure plan no matter what happens in my life. I can think of it like a hearthstone and say, this is what I like to do for now, and if I need to change it, I can change it. I'm learning that I can allow myself to balance out naturally from these decision making. What I mean by that is I can allow myself just to get a feel for each thing, get a feel for these different expansions. I can get a feel for Burning Crusade, play for a bit. I can get a feel for Wrath of the Lich King, play for a bit. I can get a feel for retail. And I could see what feels right to me. And so far, Wrath of the Lich King just feels right to me. But if there's a time where I want to play a different game, or I want to go at a different pace, then that's okay as well. I feel like what I'm learning to understand is video games for me is a way to play out my feelings instead of a way to get some kind of external material or to get some kind of get something that real life is supposed to give me. Video games is just a way to play out life in a different way, to be creative, to see things that you would never see in the real world. I know that one expansion will be the right home for me, however. I know that Wrath of Lich King will be the right base to work off of. And then if I want some kind of variation, some kind of variety of, let's say I want to play something more slow paced, I want to be able to play something more story enriching, that comes from the craving of the base formula, which is Wrath of Lich King. And that honestly could change, but I feel like it won't. I feel like the feeling I get from living in Arizona, the feeling I would get from playing Wrath of Lich Kings, that feeling won't go away. I feel like what would change, like I said, is sometimes your cravings or needs of wanting to pivot away from your base formula. But I feel like your base formula would never change. And I sometimes have to be okay with that changing as well, because I know that sometimes your home can go away. I sometimes think about what's going to happen with Blizzard in the future. Maybe there won't be a Wrath of Lich King classic server that I can play on. Well, what am I going to do then? Maybe in Arizona, I can't live there for a certain period of time for whatever reason, and I need to make a new home. But like I said, it's just a general plan, and it's okay if it changes. And that uncertainty that I'm feeling right now, that's okay to have. For right now, that's how I feel, and I'm going to work with it. I hope you guys gain something meaningful out of this. Thank you guys for listening. See you guys in the next one.